Hey guys, Dustin Com here with Adventist Hoops. Before we get into this conversation with Aldin Smalling, who owns his own Adventist basketball club in Canada and has quite an interesting personal journey with the game himself, I want to tell you about a new company called Advent Sports that's looking to make a difference in Adventist athletics. Go to advent-sports.com and check out what they have available. In particular, look at their college prep camps. I would have loved to have gone to an Adventist basketball camp like this back in the day. Campers get hands-on training and mentorship from current college coaches, weight training. It's just a great way to help get you ready to play at the next level. They also have skills academies that teach the fundamentals for anyone to play at a high level. I know the guys at Advent Sports. I know they're doing this for the right reasons. They want to see our Adventist athletes flourish in an Adventist environment. So before this episode starts, just take a look at advent-sports.com to learn more. And now, let's get to this episode with Aldin Smalling. Hey everybody, welcome to the Adventist Hoops podcast. Today I have Aldin Smalling, who is a club owner, I guess you could say, yes, in Canada and in Calgary. He is going to tell us a little bit about his story. Aldin, welcome to the Adventist Hoops podcast.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us. I love what you guys do.
So tell us a little bit about why and when you started your club.
There's a story that goes back maybe 20 some years ago. So me and my brother Eric, who you know, we played high school basketball in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And in grade 11, we were ranked number 2 in the province. And they changed the city championship from Tuesday to Friday to Monday to Thursday so we could avoid the Sabbath game. And so then we thought, oh, this is great, but they're not going to do provincials, right? And then they willingly did provincials. It was Friday night, Saturday night. They changed it to Thursday night, Saturday night. So we both got to play cities and provincials. I was in grade 11, he was in grade 12 at the time. So in grade 12, it just carried over. They did the exact same thing when I was graduating grade 12. So we knew that if you stand up for your faith and what you believe in, God will open doors and opportunities. So the fact that they went to the provincial level and changed that, which is very similar to that, like you guys going to the state level, that was huge. So when I was at church and my boy said he wanted to play, and I was like, okay, we got to get some kids out and so on and so forth. The church had some big kids, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". And I was like, oh, they're ballers for sure. When someone walks in the church and they're young and they're tall, we're like, yo, that's a ball player, right? So I go up to their parents. I'm like, your kid play for any club? They're like, no, I don't play basketball. Like, what do you mean? He doesn't play basketball. And I'm like, well, you should play basketball. You should play for a club. He's like, oh, this Saturday. Don't play because Saturdays. And then I'm like, yeah. I'm like, we need to change that. So we knew that it could change. Someone had to just do something. And so me and my wife got together, like, we got to do something. We got to start a club. We got to get these kids playing, and so they can play and not have to worry about compromising their faith. Because all you got to do is ask, right? And because of my many connections in U sports like D1 basketball, NCAA in Canada, it's university sports called. Because of my connections from playing for junior national programs and Nike camp and provincial teams over the years, I had a lot of connections for different coaches in youth sport. I either played with, played against, or played for. Right. So I started reaching out to see what people were still doing. And I had like 18 different coaches that still were head coaches for youth sport that I knew directly I could just contact. So, we started reaching out to club or tournament organizers and saying, hey, can we during your tournament, we don't play on Saturday, can we do 2 on Friday, 2 on Sunday? Right. And then we had like a lot of people were like, yeah, no problem. A lot of people I knew and they're like, oh, Al, yeah, no problem. And so we started to do that in 2021 when we had a pretty good team on paper in 2021. And then we started to travel a little bit. We had a couple of former or coaches that I was formerly coached me when I was like 14, 15 years old. So they would just accommodate everything for us, right? And then a couple of coaches remembered our situation from high school and university. So we had a lot of people accommodating us. So that's how we kind of got this thing rolling. We never really did it to have it like a ministry. It just kind of ended up that way because because we never really got a lot of support from the church. So we kind of just did it on our own and just kept going with it. And yeah, it's grown to the point where like this is our most successful season yet.
You
We've
just you
had
just told me that you guys just won a championship today, like an hour ago,
yeah,
a couple hours
yeah, we
ago.
just won we just won the U17 well, prolifically Phenom League Championship. And
Congratulations.
this is our like our silver team.
Okay.
Our U16 travel elite team just won the championship for the Crown League on Wednesday, and that league is better. But we won 104 to 78, right? So I mean, yeah, it's
I was
great because go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, it's great because we had our big guy. We have a 6'7" kid that just dominates around the basket defensively. So we run a very aggressive 2-3 bump zone and funnel things to him, and then people just freak out because he blocks everything.
Yeah.
And he was gone. He got suspended for a game, and then so we had to adjust. And I told the kids, hey, we're going to shoot as many threes and run up and down the court as fast as possible because these guys that we're playing against, they're good but they don't last very long. And we don't have our big. So we just got a run and gun. We won 104 to 78 playing that style. And it was fun. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
When you first started, you said there was like maybe a four tournaments or did you say four games or four tournaments that first
4
year?
games. That's
Four games.
COVID.
So,
There's a
so it seems like it's grown and grown. There's more travel now. Logistically, how has it been for you to figure out funding for all the travel? Some of the logistics that takes not just the will, but it takes a little bit of funding as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, Canada's a little different than the US. Primarily the kids, the parents, the families pay for their trips. We do get some sponsorship, but it's very small.
Hmm.
In the range of $1,000 to $1,500 a year.
Hmm.
So that literally is for one kid, or on a trip to anywhere in Canada,
Yeah.
that's like $150 off, right? So it's not crazy. So we would love more support for sure. Um, and we'll probably get more support as we go on, right? We don't have a facility, so it's hard for us to offer a lot in terms of advertising and marketing. We are marketing specialists. We do that for a living. So there's things that we can offer for sure that can kind of offset all those costs if we get some good sponsorships. But really, it's hey guys, the hotel's this much, the rental car's this much, the plane's this much. We got a little bit of buffer there. Do you guys want to go? It's 800 to $1,000 a trip.
Yeah.
And they are like, yeah or
which
no. And
is
most
which
of
is
the
like
time,
pretty normal for club basketball, right? The families that are used to that, they understand. But I'm also, as I'm talking to you, kind of thinking about the opportunity that there is, I think, throughout all across the continent for Adventist players to get more experience playing club basketball, but they're limited by what you talked about earlier. The families don't want to have to deal with like the Sabbath conflict, and could there be opportunities where somebody like you that's out there might be able to fill that need with the club, and just thinking practically is advice for them as they're thinking about that.
okay, so I would say there's definitely opportunities. I think a lot of coaches or people that were in my position may be scared to. But if you look at the Brigham Young model, BYU does not play games on Sundays, right? And if they're in the NCAA tournament and their bracket falls on the Sunday game, they swap with the other side, right? So that's a big time. It's NCAA Division One, NCAA tournament, right? So if they're willing to, change something for that program out because of religious reasons, there should be no reason that they shouldn't do it for ours. So, and especially at a lower level that we're not NCAA tournament level, right? So it's just a matter of, hey guys, we want to join. We're a Christian club. So if you don't want us to come, you maybe have something against it or you don't believe it or whatever, or you think the schedule's too difficult. But for the most part, you know, it's not that hard. We're willing to take the early game on Friday. And most people travel, they want the late game on Friday. Hey, we'll take the early game. We'll get another one later on, right? In the springtime, the sun sets later, 8 o'clock early on and goes up till 10 o'clock later on. So we can get a late game most of the time on Friday. So early Friday morning, later Friday afternoon, Friday evening, we can roll with that. Give us Saturday off. Let us come back on Sunday. The other team's going to play one on Friday, two on Saturday, maybe one on Friday, one Saturday, one Sunday. We're just asking for two Friday, one Sunday, and then obviously playoffs. So we get two on Sunday, at least maybe three. But it's just a matter of of you asking, right? And once you
Hmm.
say, "Hey, this is our religion. This is what we believe in. We honor the Sabbath and we observe it. So we would like to avoid that." And the thing about it is, 95% of our kids are not Adventist,
Mm.
right? But they're all taking Sabbath off. So it's a great way to witness as well. Like we have kids that come to church. We find a local church if we're on the road and we go to church and these big kids walk in, they're like, "What are you guys doing here?" And we tell them our testimony. We give them our testimony and they're like, "Wow." And then these kids who are Christians, most of our kids are Christians. When they come to church with us, they have a great experience and a great fun time. One coach told me when we were in Winnipeg for nationals, he's like, I turned off my phone today and I just did nothing and it was great. Right? So it's a great way to witness. And I believe the church, if they understood how much of an effect we're having, would support us even more because I think it's a great opportunity to witness and be an outreach for our
For sure.
faith.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good point that you bring up because I think a lot of times it's almost the Sabbath is sort of a stumbling block to people when they think of athletics. And maybe they haven't actually looked into it, right? Like maybe if you actually ask around, maybe if you talk to, tournament organizers and other clubs that are out there, you realize, oh, these are just individuals and they make the decisions and they would say, oh, yeah, that's no problem. We would for sure, take you.
Yeah.
So.
And I think
Uh,
because it's faith, right? It's faith-based, right? And I think a lot of people, especially in America, right, there's some faith behind them. And if you can open up opportunities based on the fact that we believe in this, if you're Muslim, we have kids in our program that are Muslim, right? So when we pray before games, they just remove themselves, right? And then they come back and it's all fine because we want people from all different types of faiths and religions to be part of us. This is a way for us to witness to them, but also we believe in freedom of religion. So um, if someone has some foundation, the organizers have some faith-based foundation or any type of foundation where or some type of faith that they adhere to, then they could fully understand where we're coming from in terms of the Sabbath, right? It's just if you don't, then it's just a matter of switching games, right? So
yeah, yeah. I have to ask you this question because anytime this comes up, there's always people that are critical.
mhm.
They're always wondering, like, is it really an Adventist team? Especially specifically with like American schools. Like, okay, if most of the players on your team aren't Adventists, then you know, is it really an Adventist team that's performing and winning and all of that? And are the Adventist kids missing out? So I was just going to ask, do you take any criticism for most of the kids not being Adventist at this point? I mean, it's your own business, so I would think maybe it's not as hypercritical as maybe a school setting, but
Yeah, no, we don't take any. We want more Adventist kids in our program. I mean, we tell parents from the church
yeah,
all the time that this program is built around your kids.
yeah, yeah,
Like we want your kids to be a part of this, right? Like we really do. And there's some really good talent in the church. And it needs to be tapped into. And I think if parents realize that there's a group, there's a family right now that just joined us this year. And they come to all the practices, they come to all the games, they travel and everything, and they're just loving it because their kid played at a lower level and now he has to play up at a higher level. He's getting so much better and he's loving it, he's having fun, and they're seeing our success. And so, when we tell people in the church, I don't think they actually understand how good we are.
mm,
And then when you become part of it, you're like, oh, these guys are like they're beating everybody, right? Like we're 21-5 this year, right? And for our five losses, um, four of them came to a U17 team in overtime,
you're
right?
trying, and
So
this is your U16
your
team.
U16 team,
Yeah,
right? So they're and my best players are 15 years old, just turned 15, right? So I mean, we're U16 next year if we wanted to be as well with our best players, but we'll probably move up. But yeah, I mean, we don't get a lot of. I mean, most people don't even know. Like Adventism in Calgary is not as well known as is in many places in the South in the States,
mm,
especially in California, stuff like that, where our Sister White and Battle Creek in Michigan, all those places like it, and even by Washington D.C. in those areas where Mark Finley and them, his churches are like those are very large, prominent Adventist communities, whereas here it's not as big. So
yeah,
I have myself explaining why we don't play on Saturdays
mm,
more than we don't have a bunch of Adventist kids in our program.
yeah,
We had about five kids in 5 years. My son being one of them, both my
mm,
boys being one of them. So,
mm,
but we have kids come by that are in university. Just come by and just when they're in town, they come see us on Saturdays. They say, "Hey, we know you're going to be home. and they hang with us on Saturday and do nothing. And they're like, this is awesome. So
Did you say
yeah.
that Berman will come by?
No, we have kids from the U from
Oh, they are
Division
gone now.
two and
Yeah, yeah,
JUCO
yeah,
in the
yeah.
States. Yeah,
Got it,
yeah.
got it, got it.
So
Yeah. For some reason, I heard our university. I'm thinking Adventist College.
yeah,
Um,
we go to Berman and play there too sometimes. Yeah,
okay.
for like exhibition games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was going to ask what your year looks like as far as the actual length of the season. Do you have off-season stuff that goes on? I mean, what kind of schedule is it for you?
Yeah, so usually we spring's the time to play. Like that's when everything happens. So we go from beginning of April to end of June. This year we're going into July. We have my son plays on the Made Hoops Live circuit. So we go there in middle of July, and then end of July to August, early August, we go to nationals in Langley, BC. And that's for all of Western Canada. So
That's
our
exciting.
season is kind of like done today,
Okay.
with the exception of those things. And so our practices and stuff, like we won't have many practices leading up to that. But gyms are just it's just different in the summertime. It's very harder to get a gym in the summertime. It's very hard in the winter because everyone's there. But in the summertime, there's just not a lot of options, especially for school gyms. They're all there's no option to get them. So um my season kind of starts in spring, and then we get summer, and we do summer training, small group training throughout the summer because we believe summer is when the kids get, make or break the kids. Their game has to improve exponentially during the summer times. They got a lot of time during the day, so we do a lot of training in the summer, and then in September when they go back to school, we have fall league. Fall league goes till November. And then we don't do anything during high school season or school season because
Hmm.
that's kind of their school season, and they don't allow kids to play school and club,
Hmm.
right? Which is good. I think teachers should coach. If you've a teacher and you've coached before, that's the best option. Or a teacher that played, sorry, those are the best options because teachers know
Yeah.
how to teach, right? I'm a
Yeah.
club owner. I think I'm a good coach, right? I think I'm getting better with experience, but I had struggles early on with teaching the game. I just thought you say this and they do it, right? But there's more to it. And teachers, they know how to do that. So school ball is what they do, and then we get back into spring. So it's kind of like 9 out of 12 months.
Why do you think it is that Adventist families aren't as interested in participating? Is it just because basketball is not as popular in general up there, or um,
No, I think parents are scared that their kids are going to compromise the Sabbath.
mm,
Honestly, like I
like that not because you've explained that like we don't play any games on Sabbath, but you're afraid that they're afraid potentially that like they get into the sport and it's going to be too big of a temptation like as they go and maybe
yeah,
playing for their
yeah,
school team and stuff like that.
exactly. Not through us, right?
Yeah.
Like through whatever after happens after, if they're really, really
Yeah.
good. Like
Yeah.
my son's really, really good, right? Like I expect my son to play at least university in Canada,
Hmm.
right? So the highest level of university in Canada, or if he grows and if he gets a lot better, potentially Division 1, maybe mid-major, so on and so forth. Um, at that point, I have connections in Canada enough that I think he can avoid the Sabbath, but it's still going to be his decision. Those connections don't run deep in the States. So he has to be, MJ of Canada, in order for that to happen. But you had a guy on your podcast earlier that went to Eastern Tennessee and but he was very, very good. So if you're very, very good, some opportunities will be open up for you. But I'm concerned about that decision when the time comes. Because I won't lie to you, when I played university, I played on the Sabbath for my 2 years.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to play on the Sabbath after my second year. I didn't feel right about it.
Hmm.
And I basically quit basketball
Hmm.
um, and pursued other things. And I averaged 20 points in my second year of university,
Hmm.
15 as a rookie, right? So I was a prominent player in Canada.
Why
And
why did why did you have that change of heart
um, like to play on the Sabbath.
to you all of a sudden you were convicted that you shouldn't be playing?
I always thought I shouldn't be playing. It wasn't a thing that said when I played, it wasn't like I was saying, oh, I was making excuses like, oh, I think it's okay to play on Sabbath. I never thought it was okay.
Mm.
So it was eating at me. And if you know my brother, if I come back from a game on a Friday night. And I'm like, hey, Eric, I scored 28 points. He's like, good job, heathen, and just makes a joke out of it, right? And then, so it was a joke, right? But I had to, I had this, I was grounded in my faith, and I knew that I wasn't necessarily doing what was right. I knew I was doing what was wrong, and not even wrong. Because I don't believe I don't believe that, like, I just thought that, God has opened up opportunities for me before. I should allow him to open up opportunities for me again, right? And I didn't give God that chance. I just
Mm.
decided I was going to do it. And the truth of the matter is, in university, I could play based on schedule 14 out of 20 games, just based on the schedule. And then we can work around changing those other six, maybe half of them, right? Like, so there was a real opportunity for me to be a witness, and I didn't do it. Now, I ended up stopping because of my convictions, because as fun and great as I was, and how much fun I was having playing basketball, there was something missing, and I needed to get back to what I believed in. So when I quit and moved to Calgary and met my wife, basketball was just not part of the plan anymore.
Mm.
And now I'm living the dream through my youngest, and hopefully, I can teach him how important it is to observe Sabbath, and not just because you shouldn't be scared to break the Sabbath, like you're going to go to hell if you break the Sabbath, oh gosh. But because God asked you to do so, and God honors you when you honor him. And I think to be a witness and have a testimony, if you can open up doors and opportunities without having to compromise the Sabbath, I think that's a great witness for other kids that think that they can't do this without having to break the Sabbath. Do you
Hmm.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's weird because when I was 17, I'm 42 now. So 25 years ago, I would have never thought that, you know, my son would possibly be one of the kids that could maybe break that mold, right? Um, and so, it's pretty cool to see it kind of come full circle, because we had another kid in Winnipeg who was Adventist. His name was Ramogi Nayagudi, and he went to play Division One basketball. He's 6'9" point guard, left hand. He was great. He was on Is Written and everything for his basketball skills, and he kept the Sabbath. And the Basketball Manitoba was calling me about this kid Ramogi, because they remembered my situation from 20 years ago, and saying, "Hey, what do we do to make sure that this guy doesn't fail?" Right? And then, so they asked me for advice and stuff like that. So it's just cool how it kind of came full circle. But I think it's very important just to honor God at his word. It says, remember the Sabbath day for a reason. So I think we should honor that, right? And I don't think basketball should get in the way of that. I
Mm.
think God opens up opportunities if you if you remain faithful to it.
Coming out of high school, what was your recruiting process like, and was the Sabbath a part of those conversations, or were you just, uh, excited to be, considering different options and, just seeing what people had to offer, as opposed to like it being out there first thing on the table, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird because, like, I never really thought about it at all, like, until, like, I'm going to university, and my coach says, what's going on with Saturdays, right? Like, there was never an offer where it's like you have to play on Sabbath. There was never an offer I don't think they thought that I wasn't going to play on the Sabbath thing. Most of the coaches just thought when I turned 18 I would change. And they were right. Um, we went to a trip in North Dakota um, on a Saturday night. It was winter. We had a snow. It wasn't winter,
And
but
what university was this?
it was NDSCS, North Dakota State College of Science.
But the one that you played it for?
Oh, the one I played for is University of Winnipeg.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the University of Winnipeg in U Sport. But we went on a that Saturday night. We were just kind of hanging out. It was like 6 o'clock, and then the NDSCS coach calls, and he's like, "Hey, I seen your game film. How fast can you get to North Dakota?" And I called my brother, and I'm like, "Eric, can we go to North Dakota?" He's like, "When?" He's like, "Tonight." He's like, "All right, let's go." So I call my best friend, me, Eric, another guy, my best friend, and it takes like 4.5 hours to get there. We get there in like 2 hours. So we're just killing it down the highway. We get there like midnight, we play, and then they offer, right? And when I was in the dorm rooms that night, there was another Adventist kid on the team, but he didn't keep the Sabbath at that point. He grew up Adventist. When he went to university, he stopped keeping the Sabbath. And we were kind of just talking, and he's like, man, I really wish I didn't play on Sabbath. I really wish I stayed grounded in my belief. And it was like, you look back and now, it was like God was talking to you at that point because I wasn't even thinking about any of this stuff. And then we had some conversations and so on and so forth. And then, we left there, and then, I had a conversation with a bunch of Canadian schools, and eventually University of Winnipeg, my hometown, decided to give me a lot. They gave me a lot. It was hard to kind of refuse. And after my second year, when I was telling my coach, I don't want to do this anymore because I don't really want to play on the Sabbath, he was like, why didn't you tell me that from the beginning?
Mm.
Like you wouldn't have to play. Like you wouldn't have to play on Sabbath. You told me at the beginning. Nothing would have changed. You still
Wow.
would have got your tuition. You still would have got your scholarship. You still would have got all the extra incentives that I got. Get your faith. Like you should have told me that. And I was sitting there like, because everyone was kept telling you if you're going to play university, you have to play on the Sabbath. Like you have to.
Yeah, right.
So I never really questioned. I didn't want to mess anything up. I didn't want to mess money up or tuition or anything that they were paying for, right? Because I'll be honest with you, the University of Winnipeg gave me a lot. I was basically a full scholarship D1 player with additive incentive, right? So when we were, looking at like the paperwork for the what I was getting, I looked, I was like, this is good. You know what I mean? I don't want to all of a sudden say, hey, but I'm not playing on the Sabbath. I kind of just left it alone because I wanted to play basketball, so I figured that was just part of the process. So I never really thought about till after I decided not to play. And after I decided not to play, I realized that I could have just been keeping my faith and honoring God this whole time. So yeah.
Wow. Well, there's, I think, a theme here. You don't know until you ask, whether it's creating a club team that doesn't have to play on Sabbath, or, kids that are getting recruited and worried that the Sabbath's going to cause an issue. I mean, having it out there and being a part of the conversation, you discover maybe it's not as big an issue as we think. I certainly think it can limit kids, in certain situations because it's maybe a super competitive environment, and okay, if you're not going to be available 100% of the time, then we'll go with this person that's basically the same player. But
You
you
know,
got
to speak on that though, you know, if you look at an NBA schedule, right? Even college, some colleges, if you're mid-majors, you have a better opportunity of avoiding Sabbath. We understand ACC and SEC and Big Ten, those big games are on Saturday, Sundays, Friday nights, right? But if you look at the NBA schedule, 82 games, out of 82 games, you'll probably miss 12 games,
mhm,
right? Kawhi Leonard plays 70 games every 2 years, right? Joel Embiid doesn't play ever
yeah, yeah,
games. Like those guys are available all the time, and they don't aren't available all the time, And so I believe like if you just look at it in general, how much these superstars play in the league, most of them are not even playing 70 games. And I truly believe that if an Adventist kid ever makes the NBA, he'll have his whole career probably not getting injured and playing all these games and maybe play more than most of the guys that got drafted in front of him, right? Because like I said, I believe if you honor God, he'll honor you. I truly believe that. So it's not, if you actually look at the numbers,
mm,
it can be, you can manage around it, right? And maybe coaches don't want to, right? But the truth of the matter is, if a player comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm injured, coach, I can't go today," you got to make an instant change right away. But when you're a Christian, if you're an Adventist, then you say, "Hey, I can't play these games." Your coach can manage that schedule from the get-go
mhm,
and have a game plan to work around that from the beginning,
yeah,
right? So it's not that big of a deal if you actually look at the actual data.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've just always told kids, like, you got to make that decision ahead of time, because in the moment it's going to be a hard decision to make. When you're on a team, you're in the schedule. Hmm, who's going to be the
Yeah.
first Adventist kid to make the NBA? That is going to be, if there's an Adventist that ever makes the NBA, can you
Yeah.
imagine the jersey sales at all the Adventist churches across North
That's what I'm
America?
saying. The sponsorship, I mean, he probably gets a pay cut because he misses games. That's probably part of the
You
negotiation
know?
with the agents, right? Like, hey, he's not going to be available on Saturday, so we can't pay him whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what? What's
That
you know,
is that is interesting though. Like,
yeah,
how many players are, under a load management where they're not playing 82 anyways, and how many actual games are there on Friday nights?
yeah.
I don't know. You're probably right. Probably about
Yeah,
10,
I look at
12.
I look at it all the time. Like I
Yeah.
seriously like we have a Canadian coach at
Okay.
Pacific Tigers.
Yes.
Um,
In California.
Smart. Yeah, Smart. He's a brilliant. He's a great coach. Like I'm not lying to you. He's probably one of the best coaches in the country. Just no one knows about him. Because he went to the University of Carleton. They won 17 championships in 21 years, right?
Wow.
And part of the junior national team program. And they have a 38 and 23 record, I think. It's probably different now, but going into the season, I think it was 38 and 23 versus Division One schools. They beat Wisconsin, they beat Baylor, they beat Syracuse, right? So Duke avoided them actually. They had Zion and RJ. They
Yeah.
avoided them on the Canadian trip because they're really good. So that coach is now a coach at Pacific. So I'm looking at their schedule because I'm thinking, hey, I can reach out to this to Smart and say, hey, I got a kid. Can you come through and see what you think and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And just because I have some type of relationship with him, maybe there's some options there. So I look at their schedule. First thing I do is look at the schedules and be like, hey, how many games would he miss if he didn't play on Saturdays?
Yeah.
And I think Pacific, I think he misses about 5 or 6 games
Yeah.
out of like a 33 schedule, games. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. Well, and you referenced Reggie Todd, who played at East Tennessee State, and he said that it really wasn't an issue during the season. It was more tournament time that there was like unmovable games. But I've never paid attention to BYU, so you're saying that if there is any issues with them playing on Sunday, that it's already preset that they will switch with the
Mhm.
opposite bracket.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm like, why
Yeah.
not?
So
Why not?
yeah,
You
why
know?
not? Like it's not a big deal. Like BYU is a big program,
It still
right?
happens though, like I don't know if you saw the story on Oakwood Academy in Alabama, and just
Yeah,
like
I
in the
did. I
last
did.
few years, I think it was 2022,
Yeah.
maybe 2021, when
Oh, it's
they weren't
2024.
allowed to continue on in the state playoffs. So, and then that they went to the Capitol, they were able to get that changed, but I guess yeah, I think as much as we think that it's not because like me playing in California 20 years ago, they made accommodations for us for the playoffs 20 years ago,
Yeah, yeah.
but I guess it's not always the case still. But I think what you're saying is all good stuff for everybody to hear because like if you don't try and you don't ask, it's you're probably just going to be held back by your own assumptions that may be false, right?
Sure. And then look what happened. Like since the Oakwood Academy thing, weren't they like aren't isn't it changed now for the future that they
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
like
and they made it to the semifinals this year. So
yeah.
I mean, they were awesome. Yeah, but
Well,
yeah, no,
sometimes
it's not an issue anymore.
yeah, no, sometimes I mean maybe that team just had to sacrifice for the better of to make a change, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
um yeah, like I said, it's just about asking, right? And really like just proving a point, like going out and having a legitimate argument for your group, right? Like if there's ever a Division 1 Adventist school, they could never use, oh, you don't play on Saturdays as or scheduling as part of it because the BYU made a precedent about it.
Hmm.
BYU set the precedent already.
Yeah,
So now it's a matter of everything else that you have to do to qualify to be a Division 1 program. And
yeah.
I'm not saying Adventist school would ever do that or could ever do that, but um, there's a precedent that's set. BYU is what we can use, and I use it for a lot of different situations.
Hmm.
Most people don't even know, right? So it's actually an eye opener for most people. But yeah, you just have to ask, and you have to have a good argument. If you have a good argument, if you ask God to lead you and help you, and whatever letter you write or argument face to face you make, and it's spirit led, you should come out victorious. I believe so.
Mm. Hey, tell me more about this kid, Ramogi. How do you say his name?
Ramogi,
Ramogi.
Ramogi Nayagudi, Nyugudi, I think. Yeah, so he was one of the best players in Canada. He made the junior national team. They actually changed his schedule for his junior national program so that he could practice with them on not without it. They changed the schedule so they didn't practice on Saturday. He did play FIBA International, but those schedules they didn't change for him. Um, but he was faithful throughout his whole high school. I don't know what he's doing right now. He just got recruited to go back to University of Manitoba, so that's interesting. He did play Division 1 last year. But he was very open about his faith. It is written, did a whole, you know,
Hmm. I'll have to
whole
look at that.
series
Yeah.
thing on him for 30 minutes. It was pretty
Nice.
cool. And he's
Do you know
really
where
he
he
was
played last year? I'll look it up.
Saint. It's one of those small D ones. It's Minnesota, Summer Minnesota, Tommy's, Saint Thomas is Saint Thomas Tommy's, something like that.
Okay.
Very, very small. And he
I'll
didn't
look it
play
up.
much. He didn't play much. It was,
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was a situation where he just didn't expect to it was kind of a wasted year, I would say, right?
Hmm.
So,
Nice.
but yeah, it was cool because he we used to go to Winnipeg and travel there. I'm from Winnipeg, so going back home and going to the same churches that he attended now, and I've got to meet his dad and his family. They're wonderful people, and we keep in communication all the time. And I'm always trying to encourage him to keep the faith, right? So it was good.
Well, Alden, I really appreciate your time and just kind of explaining a little bit about your club, but also sharing your journey and your faith journey as well. And if you could leave us with just a little bit of advice, because I really think that a club model could be something that would help our Adventist kids. We always talk in the U.S. at least about there being sort of a gap in talent between our Adventist kids and just the general like youth basketball community, and but they're not able to get that like competitive experience because they don't play club basketball. They don't want to have a conflict with the Sabbath. What advice would you give to people?
Um, I would I would give like people that are in my situation that want to start a club, I think you should definitely go ahead and do it. And I think you should ask God to direct you in the right path because there are so many opportunities out there. All we got to do is go out and ask. Made hoops, EYBL, all these bid circuits, they're there and they probably will try to it would probably be very hard to get into those circuits because they are on Saturdays. But there's no reason we can't ask. And then there's a lot of great AAU tournaments that are kind of hidden, that are great tournaments, that are 3-day tournaments, 4-day tournaments that we can actually be a part of, right? Like we played 27 games so far this year. We're going to play five more nationals. We're going to play over 30 games without having to play on the Sabbath. So if we could do it over here, we have a limited amount of club tournaments to go to. In the US, there's so many, and a lot of these tournaments, as is, especially throughout the summer, don't even go on the weekends. So there's just lots of opportunities. You just have to explore those opportunities. And I would speak to your local church if there's a local gym or local school where you can actually use. I think it'd be nice to have the church as part of a program. We are still trying to get the church to be a part of our program because I think support from the church is very, very important, especially for kids. I mean, gym fees over here, $100 an hour, right? So for us, it's like that gets pushed on to the kids, and then it gets to a point, especially for Adventist families, that am I really going to pay this much money to play club basketball for my kids to play club basketball? So
Yeah.
we could subsidize the cost as much as possible, either through some funding from the church or funding from different people in the church, sponsorships, and being able to use local facilities that the church has. I think all that stuff is going to help them grow if they do start a club. And the truth of the matter is, um, we can never be afraid as Adventists to like do things that may not be normal, or like be afraid to do things because someone says that you have to change this, someone says you got to change that. You do not have to compromise your faith to play basketball. You don't, right? You do it, you see what opportunities God will open up for you, and you take them when they come, because there's a whole bunch of very talented kids that just don't play club, just don't play any level of basketball after even high school, because of the fear, or the fear of having to play on the Sabbath. And that's not true. It's just not. If you are good, if you are Michael Jordan, right? People will make changes for you, right? So if there's a kid in the church and he's talented and he wants to pursue basketball, I say go all at it. Go out, get the training you need, get the coaches training you need, and just see what God has in store for you. Because if you are faithful to him, he will be faithful to you. I truly believe that. And I think everyone that is involved in basketball in the church should come together and start programs like this. It also helps kids stay grounded. We teach really good fundamentals in terms of basketball and off the court. Our kids are not allowed to talk crap. So you can't make gang symbols when you hit threes or yell at the other team. If the other team yells and talks garbage to you, you don't say anything back. We can't swear. There's standards that we uphold, Christian values, Christian-centered values that we uphold, that our kids all have to uphold, right? We pray before games. We pray after games. We thank God for opportunities that He's placed in front of us, and we're a witness to everyone around. And then all these parents now, they all want to join our club because of what we stand for, and it's a beautiful thing. So I think you go out and do it for sure. And for me, it would be a disservice for me not to be doing what I'm doing, right? With my history of basketball, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, Alden, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your background and the club, and just the testimony that you're providing to all these families and all the tournaments you go to. Thank you so much for being on the Adventist Hoops podcast.
no, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out. And I love what you guys are doing. I hope you continue doing it.